Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar. My name is James Vann. I'm an attorney here with Vann Attorneys. We are so thankful that so many of you have signed up. We obviously have a topic that is pertinent to what's going on in your world. So hopefully that's going to be helpful to you today. Just as a little bit of homework, if you have any questions today, you may submit them two different ways. One is using the control panel on the GoToMeeting control panel. Just submit a question that way. We'll see it. Or you may email it to webinar@vannattorneys.com. We'll be glad to address those during the webinar today. Also, we're going to have our next webinar on March 16th of this year, and the topic is going to be the 2016 lien law update. So we'll give you a little bit of an update on what's going on with the lien law world in North Carolina. So that's on March 16th. If you haven't already registered, you can go to our website and do it from there. And also, I just want a huge thank you to Michael Fernald, who is our IT technology guy, who is a great guy to work with. He's just such a great friend, but also a good guy, and our staff that helps us get this done so that I can come do this for a few minutes, and then they make sure everything else is working. But thank you to our staff and to Michael for that. Very much appreciative. So the other thing I want to mention is this. We've got the next topic for our webinar. If you can think of a topic that you would like for us to cover, and it's a legit topic, now, like it's not like the 6 top beers that you know that are most flavorful or something like that, but really something that is what you think would be helpful, please send that in. And what we did it last time, it was sort of fun. If for the first one who either sends it in by email or does it on the control or the control panel for GoToMeeting, we'll give you a free lunch. How about that? Pretty good deal. No strings attached. So with that, let's get started on looking for 6 steps for collecting accounts receivables in 2016. Some of the topics that we're going to be looking at today is one of those, and some of you may be using this, some of you may not. Sometimes I feel like it's something we all forget, is that the Postal Service, even though we may not use the Postal Service near as much as today as we did 5-10 years ago, there's still some really great services that they provide. So we're going to look at an address service, contact frequency with your customers, preparation for what you're doing, and the conversation control, which I know many of you do, and so we're going to use this as encouragement, and then avoiding confrontation, and then confirming calls. So those are just a couple of the topics we're going to be looking at. So the service or address of service requested is a service that the Postal Service provides, and it's a request for an addressee's new address. So for example, let's say your customer, they moved, they're forwarding their mail, you don't know where they are, you haven't confirmed, you might not even know that they moved. If you have that on the envelope, and I'll show you, the next slide will show you where that is. If you have that on the envelope, you pay a little bit for it through the Postal Service when it comes back to you, but the post office actually will research the new information and look for that address, send it back to you, telling you what that address is. So it's a real advantage versus just sending it. You don't get it back, so you presume that they got it. And also, if they've moved, changed addresses, and didn't tell you, this sort of helps speed up that process. So it's a really great service. So this is an example of what the envelope would look like. So if you look in the upper left-hand corner, right under the return address field where it says address service requested, that is the words that you need. And actually, the Postal Service has very strict guidelines as to what it should say, where it should be on the envelope, and the font size. So again, if you're going to do this, if you want us to help you, be glad to, or if you want to, you can do it yourself, but if you want some help, we'd be glad to help you. You need to make sure that it has address service requested on there, because that'll tell the Postal Service, "Oop, we need to figure this out," and then they'll send that back to you. So we actually used to use that a lot. We still use it on certifieds when we send that out, because that's sort of more of an important process for us, and it really works out well. We get a number of those back if they have moved. So again, something for you to think about when you're sending statements, statement of account to your customers. What about the contact overdue accounts more frequently? I know y'all do a great job, and I know many of you who dialed in and registered for the day do a great job of keeping that on the forefront. But keeping the contact with your customers more frequent is obviously a proven track record of getting paid faster. Obviously, it goes back to the squeaky wheel gets the grease. We all know how that works. I've got a case going on right now where we are trying to get a customer to finish paying out the account. And I bet you we've had 3 to 4 phone conversations every day in the last 3 or 4 days with them, and we're going to get it resolved. But that's the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and so we're staying in front of them. And I just say that to encourage you, if when you've got those big accounts and you're trying to get them, stay in front of them as much as you can. Obviously, y'all also using various methods of contact. The phone, thankfully, is still a great way to reach folks. Unless they're blocking your calls or just refusing to take them, using the phone is a wonderful way to have a one-on-one connection. Obviously, you're probably using mail, and I bet many of you are using email probably more so now than you did 5 years ago. Also, I know many of you use text messages with your customers. At least it's happened in our world, and I'm sure it's happening in yours. So those are just other methods and mechanisms to use, not to shy away from, but at the same time, I would encourage you, using the phone is a great one-on-one to actually reach them. Visit the customer, obviously, but take someone with you when you do that is a great method of getting in front of your customer. And, a lot of times you can use that as a positive, as a sales call almost. Hey, look, we value your business. We really want to make sure that you're staying healthy and that you're staying current. We obviously know that you're past due. We want to know what's going on. How can we help you? Hopefully those are good, valid reasons to go visit a customer. So that might be a mechanism that you could use, or have the customer come and meet with you. That's obviously another great way of having a connection and a touch to the customer. Again, you can use it in a very positive way. We're trying very hard to make these webinars more beneficial for you. So we've got a survey we want you to do, and it's going to pop up. It says, does your company send statements to your customers? And there's options there. One is email, mail, or both. So if you will take just a minute to select one of those, email, mail, or both, and let us know. So gotten the results in there. We've got where they're coming in. So sort of like the election night, we've got y'all doing a good job of voting. We're gonna give it just a few more seconds, and we'll pop up the results for you. So we're gonna go ahead and close it now, and we'll pop up the results for you. Hopefully you can see that on your screen. So does your company send statements to your customers both by email and mail? So 8% say mail, 31% is the postal service, and 62% is both. So that's awesome. That's great information to use. And I know many people and companies are trying to go towards email, but mail is still a great way to touch people, and they need paper at times. But I can go both ways, as if there's a benefit. But it's one of those things that helps us. Thank you for doing that. So I hope that helps you get a little bit of an idea of what other companies are doing. So let's look at number 3, and that is being prepared for the answer that you receive. And I know I've heard from many of you, excuses that you get. And I was thinking about how could we do a survey to ask for excuses, but it would take too long for you to type it in typically. But when you hear, well, the check is in the mail, great. When, follow up with that. When did you send it? And how did you send that? Did you send it regular mail? Was it overnight? And what is the amount? And then is there a check? Could you give me the check number? And the reason you ask those kinds of questions, it is to pin them down on their answer, so they go, oh yeah, I mailed that to you yesterday. If they're in their office, they should be able to pull that up. If they're in the truck or somewhere else outside of their office, they may not be able to tell you that, but they could tell you how they mailed it. And it sort of gives you some validations whether or not that your customer's telling you the truth. Are they having cash flow problems? They say, look, I want to pay you, I just don't have the cash. Great opportunity for you to say, all right, let's look at what's going on. What's going on in your business? What's going on with your cash flow? What's causing the stress on the cash? How's your business doing? and then maybe what changes is going on within your business that's creating a cash flow problem. And this question and this statement that you get from your customer may lend itself to say, hey, look, why don't you come in and let's sit down and talk with your salesman, and let's figure out how we can help you with, number one, the account with you, the creditor, but number two, how can we help you in your business? Again, create that tighter customer relationship to help them with their cash flow. I know a lot of you have had us come talk to your customers to encourage them to go talk to their customers, in essence, to make sure they get their payment faster. What about when they say, I don't have a copy of the invoice? There's two wonderful technologies now that help eliminate that argument or that statement that you get is I don't have the invoice. Okay, hold on just a minute. I'm going to email it to you, or I'm going to fax it to you. And you just don't hold on. I want to make sure that you get it, especially if they're in the office. You can confirm, did you get the email or did you get the fax? And then once they get it, while you still have them on the phone, go through and say, okay, what do you need now? What are the impediments to getting us paid? And a lot of times you just blow through those arguments or the answer that you receive from your customer and sort of help move them towards getting that payment made. So again, being prepared for the answer you receive, and I know many of you do that every single day. You are prepared. You're ahead of what they're going to tell you, and I think most of you would agree when your head's really into what you're doing versus doing it sort of by virtue of just doing it every single day, and you're really thinking about it. I don't know about you. I feel like I do a better job when I'm calling, in this case, custom debtors to say, hey, look, you need to make payment over here to this creditor company. When I'm really thinking about it and I'm prepared, I'm much better off at what I'm doing. And for me, I don't know about you, I'll say this to you for suggestions. Standing up sometimes might help, or leaning forward in your seat. And I know we all do things differently every single day, and different times of the day it helps. So if you've got techniques that that help you be prepared, make sure that you try to put those in place ahead of time. And then number 4, keep control of the conversation. I know that sounds silly, but a lot of times, you can have someone on the phone or talking with them face to face, and all of a sudden, the question of how we're going to get this thing paid, they turn it into a complaint session about everything's wrong with the services or materials they received, or the conversation just goes totally somewhere else. But when you call people by their name, they respond so much better. And if you're calling them by their first name throughout the conversation in a way that is comfortable, number one, it helps you keep control of that conversation and showing respect to them. Make the customer feel as though they're right, even though when they're wrong. The phrase, I've heard this so many times, and it goes a long way. I think when someone says, I'm not happy about this, whatever it may be, just say, I understand. However, or I understand, but it sort of validates why they may not be happy, but at the same time, you go back to the policies, procedures of your company to say, you're past due. We just need to figure out a way to get this paid. I heard this next statement the other day in a different context, but I think it fits. And that says, be hard on the issue or the policy, but soft on the person. And the reason I think that is great advice is this: you're not going to let them off the hook in paying at all. But what you're doing is saying, look, our policy, our procedure is 30 days is when the account's past due, after 30 days. We need to get this paid out. That's our procedure. We need to figure out how to do this. We always have finance charges that we assess. And the reason we do that is we're having to pay money to keep the company running because we're not getting our AR in. And a lot of times, when you talk about the issue of the policy, but you're softer on the person versus calling them out as a deadbeat or whatever the terms may be, generally they will have a lot more reason to pay you faster than if we're hard on the person and soft on the issue. So again, lean on the policy and procedures for following up for payment. So I hope that helps. The other idea is to ask open-ended questions to keep control of what's going on. What's the problem? You know, what impediments are you having that you can't get us paid? I'm involved in a nonprofit group that I'm on the board of advisors with them, and on this board we've got a guy who keeps asking questions like that versus saying, "Why have you not paid me? I need to get this paid. You need to get this paid now." That's one, and then they just say, "I don't have the money," or you know, whatever excuse they come up with or reason they come up with, versus saying, "What what's going on in your business that's preventing you from writing a check? What do we need to get, or what information do you need from us to be able to write that check so that we can get the payment?" Asking it in a way that's an open-ended question, a lot of times will keep the conversation going. And it's a great time for you to listen to sort of learn what truly is going on in their business. And then certainly take notes. I know many of you use a electronic method to take notes in the system. It's a great way of doing it because it gives you something you can go back to easily if they don't make the payment and look at it, or if you have to call them again later for another payment to say, you know, last time you told me your grandmother had died and you were out of town. Now you're telling me your grandmother's sick. Is this the same one? And I know I'm said that a little bit lightly, but that's again a value of taking notes. I know some of you on this call, and I looked through the list, and some of you, and we have dealt with cases together where we hear the same excuses time after time after time. Just the mismanagement by them of their business. So helping them by asking those open-ended questions sometimes helps them narrow down on what they need to do in their business. But again, listening carefully and also taking notes. But I hope that helps. If you have questions, again, make sure you send those to us. We've got one more survey we would really appreciate you answering for us. And it's with the sales increasing for most companies now, are your past due accounts increasing, decreasing, or remaining flat? So we're going to put that up for you so you can answer that on the poll. So again, with sales increasing for most companies, are your past due accounts increasing, decreasing, or remaining flat? So if you would enter in your answer for that, we'll give it a few more seconds and then we'll show you the poll results. We figure this might be something that's good. That's not necessarily specific in your industry, but it's certainly helpful, hopefully, in overall business. So we almost got about 70, we got about 82% voting so far. So we'll give it just a few more seconds, and we're getting close. So we've got 88. So we'll go ahead and close the poll, and we'll look. Got 94% voted. So the results are, with sales increasing, past due accounts are remaining flat, looks like, tied with decreasing. So that's interesting. That means y'all are obviously staying ahead of your AR, it looks like, to a large extent, which is really good. Some are 25% is increasing, and sort of makes sense. I actually thought that number might be higher given that sales are going up, but that's a really good, I think that's probably a really good result based off of what y'all are doing, and is keeping the AR down, because obviously that helps your business grow. So hopefully that helps you seeing that result. So thank you so much for answering those for those questions. So let's look at the next one again, keeping control of the conversation, using silence to allow the customer to fill in that quiet time. That is a tremendous asset, and many of you who have been in this market for a long time know exactly how to use that. But there are times when you can ask a question and then stop. And it may be painful for you for just a little bit for that silence. And I keep waiting for Michael to raise his eyes going, when are you going to talk again? But it's really, it can be painful. But if you ask the question, when can you make the payment? Wait for them, see what they do, or whatever however that works for you. But using silence at times, this case I was saying about where I've been talking to this person 3 or 4 times a day, generally they've thrown out the same counter offer to us, I think 3 or 4 times, and I keep saying that counter offer is rejected. You need to submit a new offer. And I sit there at that point, and sometimes it seems like it's been 2 or 3 minutes. I know it hasn't been, but it'll be 30 seconds, and finally that person says, well, okay, and they come up with something else. And so I think that can be a useful tactic. So I'll throw that out to help you, hopefully. Stay focused on your purpose. Sometimes you can get in a conversation with someone, and all of a sudden it just somehow or another leaves the conversation and goes to something totally different. And if that's the case, you need to, number one, make sure you're aware of it, but try to keep it back to, okay, the reason I called you was about your past due account. Let's look at that. How are we going to get this paid? How are we going to do it? When can you give us a check for the balance? Again, stay focused on your purpose. And if the customer loses it, I don't know if that happens as often now as it maybe did years ago. Just stay calm. And I know many of you, again, you're seasoned professionals in this marketplace. And some of you, I think, don't take it home with you. Some of you, I think, do, and just talking with you. But I'm going to encourage you not to take it home with you, because you can't control how people react. And obviously, usually, the issue that they're facing generally is not because of you. It's generally something else that's driving it. Some options that you could say is, hey, could you hold on just for a moment, please? Put the phone down. Don't put them on hold, but put the phone down. Go do something for 30 seconds and come back. Say, okay, great, thank you. A lot of times they actually, that time, well, they'll just sort of be quiet, and they don't get back on their high horse as quickly. Or say, I'm sorry, I can't understand what you're saying. Can I call you back in 15 minutes? And again, that sometimes gives them some time to sort of back down off of being on their high horse of complaining or really losing it on the phone. And certainly, again, try to treat them with kindness, try to treat them with professional respect, because I think that's obviously they're dealing with things that you may not know about. But at the same time, most of it, when they respond to you that way, they're really not responding to you that way. They're just responding that way because of other circumstances in their life or their business. I think a lot of times you might be able to keep them as a customer by doing that. So it sort of leads into avoiding the confrontation issue. Being pleasant, being in control, and remaining calm, it's so much better for you professionally, for your health, but also for your longevity and what you're doing and your enjoyment of your job. I've used this example whenever before. There was a client that we had an opportunity to work with, and they had a credit manager who I think really did a great job at what she did, but she hated her job after a while. It just was wearing her down. She got to where she was belligerent with the customers, and it wasn't because she was that kind of person, but I think over the years, she just took that stuff internalized, and I think for her, internalized all the comments and the negative stuff that she heard, and it just made her into a sour person. I had the real pleasure working with her when that was not the case, and she eventually got out of that and into a different area with the company, and I saw her a couple of years later, and it was truly like watching a flower bloom again. She was loving life. She was loving what she was doing. And I wanted so badly to ask her to sort of reflect back and give me that perspective, but I didn't want to bring back bad memories for her either. But you all know it. I mean, sometimes you just get chewed on right and left. Don't take it personally. Do whatever you have to do to avoid that confrontation personal, and be pleasant, keep control, and remain calm. And my mom used to tell me, remember who you are. Great advice. Remember who you are. When you're outside of your business and you're doing this, who are you? How are you known? What's your reputation? That's what you should have in your office, because that's how you got to where you are. Give options to your customer for payment. Hey, look, I'd like to get 100% of it now. They may not be able to do that. Can you pay me, half this week and half the next week, whatever it may be? How about a credit card payment, or can I get a check this week and another check in a month, or whatever the terms are? Giving them some options for payment generally helps you as well. And then something that's really important is to recap the terms of payment, so that if you reach an agreement with your customer, and they, you say, hey, look, you finally figured this thing out, how we're going to get this thing taken care of, and recap it while, if you're on the phone or in person, recap it that way. And then what I would encourage you to do is also send an email to confirm that. That's a great help to go back. Well, you know what, on such and such day on the 28th of January, we said, and you agreed, this is how you were going to get it paid. And then keep on communicating with them to do that. You get a commitment from your customer, confirm those details of how's the payment going to be made. Be made by check, or it's going to be made by credit card, or online payment, however it is. When is it going to be made? What date? What date can I expect to receive that check, or what date are you going to put it in the mail? How much is it going to be? It's not just I'm going to send you a part of it. I always, especially if they say I'll send you half next Friday. All right, let's figure out what that half looks like. So they make sure they have in their records, half of that is $5,000. So they know next Friday they're supposed to be putting a check for $5,000 in the mail. Are you going to mail it? Are they going to, somebody going to pick it up? Is it going to be hand delivered? Make sure that you confirm all of that, and then again, do it in an email afterwards. It's a great way of follow-up. Sometimes, not all the time, sometimes you need to call the customer to remind them of the promised payment. Hey, look, they're going to pay next Friday. So either Friday morning or Thursday afternoon, you call, hey, Bob, remember you said you were going to make a payment on Friday, so really appreciate you bringing that in, or appreciate you making that payment, as you said, by putting it in the mail, whatever the agreement is. And then also follow up with the customer when the payment is due, especially if the payment is not made. So following up with them ahead of time is really important. But if they did make the payment, follow up with them. I know many of you have a tickler system or some kind of a reminder system that tells you when payments are due, or whatever it may be, the case may be, so that you can follow up with them. Make sure that you do that. That's a huge plus, because they then know, well, I told them next Friday I was going to make the payment, but no one followed up with me for a month, so that's really not that important. So the reason I say that to you is just as an encouragement. So a little bit, we talked about sort of 6 ideas for tips for collecting accounts. I'm going to give you a little bit of a bonus here, and that's using third parties to help you. How do you do that? Well, I truly believe following your instinct is so important. Knowing some of you that are on the call, when you call or you send in a new case, you go, hey, look, James, this is the deal with this debtor. You have that instinct because you've dealt with them. You have the experience with them. You've talked to them. You know what it is. Telling me that tremendously helps, because we don't go through that learning curve in dealing with that customer for you. So follow your instinct. If your instinct is they're just putting me off, they're procrastinating, I need to put their feet to the fire, then follow your gut instinct. Use third parties to help. Sometimes that's an attorney. It could be a collection agency. It could be someone else in your office, sales staff, vice president, president, whomever. Sometimes it's just a different voice calling saying, you know what, Bob, we really want to get this account taken care of, and we don't want to lose you as a customer, but we got to get it taken care of. Sometimes just a third voice can make a difference. Again, and some of the options are sending a demand letter. Again, different person making a phone call, trying to secure the debt. Somehow or another, getting it secured. So, because if you're unsecured, that is, if you just have an open account and you have no security whatsoever, if that customer files bankruptcy, then it's gone. You're going to be in unsecured status and probably not get much. So if you can secure the debt by either a lien or get a security agreement or promissory note and deed of trust, something of that nature, get a lien on equipment or motor vehicles, that's the least favorite, because that stuff moves around and it depreciates in value so quickly. But at least it's something. Getting some kind of security would help. And then trying to avoid being a preference claim if the bankruptcy is actually filed later. And many of you know about preference claims. That is, if you receive a payment 90 days prior to a customer filing bankruptcy, that payment could possibly be considered as a preference claim, where you would later have to return that payment back to the bankruptcy court. A real bummer, but that's the way the law is, and there are a lot of defenses to that, so that you can say, I'm not going to return that money back because of this. But being secured is a big help, because they're making payments on a security note or some kind of a secured transaction. Gives you some extra help trying to avoid that. And there are other avenues that you could set up to try to avoid that preference or the preference claim. But again, trying to use third parties, and again, I encourage you to look at different options, different opportunities. Could be a lawyer, could be someone in your office, sales staff, vice president. Third party could help to help do that. So hopefully this is helpful to you and helpful to you and your business. If you've got questions, please let us know. And same time, if you've got ideas for other webinar topics, we really would love to hear from you, because that helps us do what we do better. And again, if you've got questions, you're welcome to submit them in today, and we'll answer them back. Thank you so much for participating. We've got another webinar coming up on March 16th, 2016. We're going to be talking about lien law update for North Carolina, so we would love for you to participate with that. And if you follow Twitter stuff or LinkedIn, Facebook, that kind of stuff, we'd love for you to follow us on that. Give us thumbs up. I'm not on Facebook, but personally, the firm is. I think I need to because my kids are going to do that. But you know, having comments or questions on social media, we try to respond to that, and certainly do. But we would appreciate you doing that very much. So thank you for dialing in today. I hope this has been helpful to you, and I hope 2016 is an awesome year. Thanks so much.